The Atlantic was a graveyard. Merchant ships vanished without a trace, and German U-boats prowled like silent predators beneath the waves. But in June 1944, something extraordinary happened. For the first time in history, a live German submarine U-505 was captured in the middle of the Atlantic. No explosions, no sinking, just courage, skill, and an unprecedented mission that would turn the hunter into the hunted. This is the story of U-505, the submarine that terrorized the seas and the Americans who dared to stop it. The Atlantic Ocean during World War II was a place of terror, mystery, and constant danger. For the Allied forces, every crossing of a convoy meant navigating a battlefield where the enemy was invisible, deadly, and relentless. German U-boats patrolled these waters like predators in the deep, striking fear into the hearts of sailors who knew that one wrong turn could send their ship to the ocean floor. Thousands of merchant vessels, carrying vital supplies of food, fuel, and ammunition, disappeared beneath the waves, leaving families, armies, and nations anxious for every delivery. By 1942, the German Navy had perfected the wolf-pack tactic, sending groups of submarines to hunt convoys together. These coordinated attacks were devastating. A single convoy of dozens of ships could be attacked from multiple directions in the dead of night. The crews on the merchant ships had little chance of escape. Stories circulated among sailors of entire convoys being wiped out before they could send distress signals. The Atlantic was for many not just a sea, but a grave. The United States, still relatively new to the naval war in Europe, struggled to protect its convoys. Escort ships were few, sonar and radar technology were still developing, and crews were often inexperienced in anti-submarine warfare. Early victories by the Germans made headlines in Europe, and the fear of U-boats became a constant companion to anyone involved in crossing the Atlantic. But the Allies refused to be defeated. They began experimenting with new tactics, new technologies, and new strategies to counter the U-boat threat. Convoys were rerouted, air patrols were extended, and secret programs were initiated to intercept and decode German communications. One of the most ambitious and dangerous operations was the hunt for a live U-boat. While sinking enemy submarines could disrupt attacks, capturing one intact promised something far greater: the ability to study its construction, its operations, and most importantly, its communications. The information hidden within a single submarine could reveal the movements of an entire fleet. The stakes were enormous, and the risks even higher. Attempting to capture a U-boat alive was unprecedented, considered by many to be impossible. But for the men of Task Group 22.3, led by Rear Admiral Daniel the 5th Gallery, the challenge was irresistible. They trained tirelessly for months, preparing to hunt the hunter. Their mission combined the latest in sonar detection, intelligence analysis, and daring naval strategy. Every patrol became a careful game of cat and mouse, every sonar ping a potential clue, and every shadow on the horizon a possible enemy. These men were entering the most dangerous theater of the war, where a single misstep could mean disaster. Yet their determination was unshakable. At the same time, U-boats continued their reign of terror across the Atlantic. These steel predators were fast, silent, and deadly. German submarine crews were highly trained, disciplined, and fiercely loyal to their mission. Many had been at sea for months at a time, enduring cramped conditions, freezing temperatures, and constant danger. Life aboard a U-boat was a test of endurance, courage, and nerves, and it took a certain kind of determination to survive. The Atlantic, already a battlefield of commerce and survival, had become a proving ground for men and machines alike. Amid this backdrop of fear and tension, one submarine would rise to legendary status. U-505 was no ordinary U-boat. Commissioned in 1941, it quickly gained a reputation for efficiency and ruthlessness. Its attacks on Allied shipping were precise and devastating, and its crew became skilled in the art of evasion and combat. Yet, despite its success, U-505 would eventually meet its match, not in firepower alone, but in the relentless pursuit of intelligence, courage, and strategic brilliance. This is the story of that pursuit, of the men who dared to track, engage, and capture a vessel that had terrorized the Atlantic for years. It is the story of how the hunter became the hunted, and how a single submarine's capture would echo through history, influencing the course of the war and saving countless lives. It is a tale of courage, ingenuity, and the relentless determination that defines the heroes of the sea. By June of 1944, Task Group 22.3 had been hunting U-boats across the Atlantic for months. Rear Admiral Daniel V. Gallery and his men were determined to achieve what no one had done before: capture U-boat alive. Their squadron consisted of carefully selected ships, including the escort carrier USS Guadalcanal, destroyers, and several smaller support vessels. Each had a role in a complex dance designed to track, trap, and ultimately seize a submarine that had struck fear into the hearts of sailors for years. The Atlantic was far from calm that June. Storms lashed the ocean. Waves towered over the decks of the ships, and the wind carried the roar of the sea across miles of open water. Yet amidst the fury of the weather, the Americans remained vigilant. Every radar sweep, every sonar ping, every crackle of radio static could be a clue. The hunt required patience, precision, and nerves of steel. The men knew that U-505 was clever, experienced, and dangerous. One misstep could turn their mission into a disaster. Then, on the morning of June 4th, a sighting changed everything. A periscope appeared on the horizon. The Americans moved quickly but cautiously. Depth charges were readied, sonar operators focused intently on every signal, and the boarding teams prepared for a task that had never been attempted: to take control of a fully armed U-boat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The ensuing pursuit was tense and relentless. U-505 maneuvered beneath the waves, attempting to evade detection with skill honed over countless patrols. Every sonar ping from the American ships was matched by evasive action from the German crew. Depth charges exploded around the submarine, sending shuddering shockwaves through the water and testing the limits of the hull. For the men on board the American ships, each explosion was a reminder of the stakes. They were not only confronting a machine of war, but also contending with the unpredictable power of the sea itself. As the chase continued, U-505 began to take damage. Water leaked into the compartments, systems failed, and the submarine was forced to the surface. It was an extraordinary moment. The predator of the Atlantic, which had eluded capture for years, was now exposed and vulnerable. The Americans did not act rashly. Boarding a live U-boat was fraught with danger. The German crew, sensing their peril, began to abandon ship. But every second mattered. Any hesitation could have allowed them to scuttle the submarine, destroying the very intelligence the Americans sought. The boarding team swung into action. Sailors climbed onto the slippery deck, ropes in hand, hearts pounding with adrenaline. They entered the submarine cautiously, moving through dark, narrow corridors filled with alarms, steam, and the scent of diesel fuel. Fires had broken out in some compartments. Water was flooding others, and every step carried the risk of a catastrophic explosion. Yet, the men worked with precision and courage, securing the submarine while ensuring the safety of both themselves and the intelligence on board. Inside U-505, the Germans had left behind a wealth of material: operational logs, maps, charts, and most importantly, the Enigma machine. This cipher device had allowed the German Navy to communicate securely across the Atlantic, coordinating attacks that had sunk countless Allied ships. Capturing it intact meant that the Americans could finally read messages that had been a mystery for years. The implications were enormous. This was not just a tactical victory, it was a strategic breakthrough that would help protect convoys, save lives, and shift the balance in the Battle of the Atlantic. The operation was not without risk. U-505 had sustained significant damage, and towing it to safety was a delicate, dangerous endeavor. Storms threatened to sink the vessel, and the Atlantic was unforgiving. But the Americans persisted. Night after night, they navigated treacherous waters, securing the submarine and ensuring that every piece of critical intelligence was preserved. Their focus, discipline, and courage turned what could have been a disaster into a historic triumph. By the end of that tense day, U-505 was fully under American control. For the first time in modern naval history, a German submarine had been captured alive. The victory was both extraordinary and unprecedented. Yet, despite its significance, it was kept classified. The Germans could not know that their codes and communications were compromised, so the story remained secret, hidden in naval archives. The men who risked everything received no public accolades at the time. Their heroism was recognized only within the Navy. Even so, the impact of capturing U-505 was immediate. Convoys became safer, U-boat attacks were mitigated, and the Allies gained a crucial advantage in intelligence that would aid in operations across Europe. This was more than a single triumph. It was a turning point in the battle for control of the Atlantic. The hunter had been transformed into the hunted, and the legends of both the submarine and the sailors who seized it would endure in the annals of history. Once U-505 was finally under the control of the American sailors, a new phase of the mission began, one that was just as dangerous as the chase itself. Securing a submarine is not like taking a captured ship. Every hatch, every compartment, every piece of machinery could conceal a hidden charge, a fire, or a structural weakness. The men moved carefully, fully aware that a single mistake could destroy the vessel and take their lives with it. Inside the narrow, steel corridors of U-505, the scene was chaotic. Water had seeped through damaged bulkheads. Alarms still sounded from the control room, and steam hissed from compromised pipes. The air was thick with the smell of salt, diesel, and burning insulation. Sailors worked tirelessly, shoring up leaks, extinguishing small fires, and checking every compartment for explosives or traps left by the retreating German crew. Each step they took required caution, discipline, and nerves of steel. Among the most valuable discoveries was the Enigma machine. This was the device that had allowed the German Navy to send secure messages across the Atlantic, coordinating attacks on Allied shipping with deadly efficiency. Capturing it intact was a triumph of intelligence and strategy. Alongside the machine, the boarding parties found detailed operational logs, maps of convoy routes, communications records, and technical manuals for U-boat operations. Every page was a potential treasure trove of information that could change the course of the Battle of the Atlantic. The men of Task Group 22.3 knew the significance of their find. They carefully documented, photographed, and secured every piece of material before beginning the delicate task of stabilizing the submarine for towing. U-505 had taken damage from depth charges and had been battered by storms, and the Atlantic was unforgiving. Each wave threatened to capsize the vessel. Yet the Americans persisted, showing extraordinary skill and coordination. This was a battle not of weapons, but of engineering, seamanship, and courage. The boarding operation itself had been unprecedented. No one had ever captured a U-boat alive on the open sea. The Americans had to improvise solutions to problems as they arose, from flooding compartments to compromised engines. The pressure was intense. Sailors carried out their work with precision, communicating through hand signals and shouted commands over the roar of the ocean. Every step forward was a victory. Every compartment secured was a triumph against the threat of disaster. Beyond the immediate danger, the strategic impact was immense. The intelligence recovered from U-505 allowed the Allies to track U-boat movements, anticipate attacks, and protect vital supply convoys. The captured Enigma machine and operational logs provided a window into German naval communications that had been previously closed. Suddenly, the Allies could decode messages in real time, saving thousands of lives and countless tons of cargo. The very nature of the Battle of the Atlantic shifted, as the once feared predator was now being monitored, understood, and countered effectively. Yet, despite the monumental significance of the capture, the operation remained a closely guarded secret. The Americans could not risk the Germans learning that their codes and communications had been compromised. The story of U-505's capture would remain classified for decades. The sailors who risked everything received little recognition at the time. Their bravery was acknowledged only within naval circles, known to a select few who understood the full importance of the achievement. Towing the submarine to port was another challenge entirely. U-505 had to be carefully guided through hundreds of miles of stormy Atlantic waters. Every movement of the ship was calculated to prevent capsizing or further damage. The men remained vigilant day and night, navigating treacherous conditions, aware that even a single mistake could undo all their hard work. The journey itself became a testament to endurance, skill, and the courage of those who refused to let fear dictate their actions. By the time U-505 reached Bermuda, it was clear that this mission was one of the most daring and consequential operations in naval history. The submarine, once a symbol of terror in the Atlantic, had become a strategic asset for the Allies. The intelligence recovered would save lives, protect convoys, and help ensure the success of operations across Europe, including the critical supply lines supporting the D-Day invasion. The capture of U-505 was not just a story of strategy or engineering. It was a story of human courage under pressure, of men who faced danger in the most extreme conditions imaginable. It was a demonstration of ingenuity, teamwork, and relentless determination. The Atlantic had claimed many ships, but it could not claim the spirit of those who pursued the hunter and emerged victorious. Once, U-505 had been towed safely to Bermuda. The story of its capture was far from over. The submarine was now in the hands of historians, naval intelligence, and engineers who carefully studied every inch of the vessel. Every document, chart, and piece of equipment was analyzed to extract information that could influence the course of the war. The Enigma machine, in particular, became a treasure of intelligence, allowing Allied codebreakers to decipher German naval messages with unprecedented speed and accuracy. The immediate impact of capturing U-505 was monumental. Allied convoys, which had once traveled under the constant threat of unseen predators, became safer. Routes could be adjusted, attacks anticipated, and lives saved. The Atlantic, which had been a graveyard for thousands of sailors, slowly became more navigable. Every ton of supplies reaching Europe helped sustain the armies and civilians fighting for survival. The capture of a single submarine had changed the dynamics of the war, giving the Allies an edge that was both strategic and psychological. Yet, despite its importance, the capture remained classified. The Americans understood that if Germany discovered that one of their U-boats had been seized intact, it would change the entire landscape of naval warfare. Codes would be altered, strategies revised, and the advantage lost. So for decades, the story of U-505 remained a secret. The men who had risked their lives to capture it did not appear in headlines, their names largely unknown to the public. Recognition would come much later, long after the war ended, when the details of their daring mission could be shared safely. In the years that followed, U-505 became a symbol of both human ingenuity and courage. Eventually, the submarine was preserved and transported to Chicago, where it now stands as a museum ship. Visitors walking through its narrow corridors can feel the tension, the danger and the courage it took to board a live enemy submarine in the middle of the Atlantic. Every hatch, every control panel, every piece of equipment tells a story of determination and bravery. It is a living testament to a moment when ordinary men achieved something extraordinary. The story of U-505 is not just about military strategy or technical skill. It is about human perseverance and the willingness to confront fear head-on. The sailors who boarded the vessel, who worked tirelessly in claustrophobic, dangerous conditions, exemplified the qualities that define true heroism: courage, ingenuity, and teamwork. Their actions turned the hunter into the hunted, changed the course of the Battle of the Atlantic, and left a legacy that continues to inspire generations. Even today, the story of U-505 resonates because it demonstrates that history is often shaped by bold decisions, calculated risks, and the relentless pursuit of knowledge. The Atlantic had swallowed countless ships and claimed many lives, but it could not swallow the courage, determination, and ingenuity of the men who dared to chase one of its most feared predators. Standing on the deck of U-505 at the museum, it is easy to imagine the stormy Atlantic waves, the explosions of depth charges, and the tense silence of sailors moving through narrow corridors. It is a reminder that even in the darkest, most dangerous circumstances, human courage can turn fear into triumph. The Atlantic had been a theater of destruction, but for a brief, extraordinary moment, it became the stage for one of the most daring and successful missions in naval history. The legacy of U-505 endures not because of the destruction it once caused, but because of the ingenuity, skill, and bravery that led to its capture. It is a story of courage under pressure, of strategy and determination, and of the men who refused to be intimidated by the hunter that had terrorized the Atlantic for years. It is a story that reminds us that even in war, human bravery and intelligence can triumph over fear and adversity. And so, the legend of U-505 lives on. From the depths of the Atlantic to a museum in the heart of Chicago, it stands as a testament to what can be achieved when courage, strategy, and determination converge. The Atlantic swallowed many ships, but it could not swallow the spirit of those who dared to chase the hunter itself, and in doing so, changed the course of history forever.